Unidentified aircraft conducted numerous bombardments of Iranian proxy militias in Syria's eastern countryside of Deir ez-Zor. The aerial attack occurred shortly before midnight on Saturday, with local sources reporting at least 8 separate attacks on the Maizila base, which serves as the headquarters of a number of Shiite militant groups that operate in Syria at the behest of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards. At least 12 Iranian-backed militiamen of Iraqi and Afghan origin were killed, in addition to reports of extensive damage to the installation's weapons caches and numerous vehicles. It is important to mention that the attack occurred after the Iranian-controlled installation obtained significant reinforcements from Iraq of both Iranian proxy militiamen and military equipment. Furthermore, it is noteworthy to mention that the unidentified bombardment occurred less than 2 days after another clandestine aerial operation destroyed an Iranian missile production plant near the Syrian city of Masyaf. The IDF spokesperson's unit refused to confirm nor deny to TV7 its involvement in either reported aerial bombardments. Now another, yet related news, the International Atomic Energy Agency, commonly referred to by its acronym IAEA, circulated a confidential document among its board of governors on Friday in which it complained about the Islamic Republic's persistent refusal to permit the agency's inspectors to enter a number of installations that may have been used for nuclear-related activities. In spite of the fact that Iran announced on January 5th earlier this year that its nuclear program would no longer be subject to any restriction in the operational sphere, it vowed to continue to cooperate with the agency as in the past. Nevertheless, after a clandestine operation by an Israeli intelligence agency pointed the IAEA in the direction of what Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu described in 2018 as a secret atomic warehouse, the International Atomic Energy Agency confirmed in November of 2019 that its inspectors had indeed uncovered uranium of man-made origin at a location near the Iranian capital Tehran that was not declared to the agency. Subsequently, the Ayatollah regime immediately refused any access of IAEA inspectors to the undeclared site in question, despite repeated protests by IAEA Director General Rafael Mario Grossi, who acknowledged the urgency to conduct the inspections because samples can degrade over time. Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu highlighted Iran's repeated violations of its nuclear-related activities, which the Israeli leader believes is a clear indication of Tehran's aspiration to acquire nuclear weapons capability.
בסוף השבוע, הסוכנות הבינלאומית לאנרגיה אטומית קבעה שאיראן סירבה לאשר לפקחי הסוכנות גישה לאתרים סודיים שבהם איראן ביצעה פעילות גרעין צבאית חשאית. איראן מפירה בשיטתיות את התחייבויותיה, גם בהסתרת אתרים, גם בהעשרה של חומר בקיע וגם בהפרות אחרות.
The Israeli premier went on to reiterate his call on the international community to join Washington's efforts to thwart the Islamic Republic's race toward its aspired nuclear-related goals by applying crippling sanctions against the Ayatollah regime.
אני מאמין שהגיעה העת, אני חושב שכבר עברה העת, אבל בוודאי שכעת זה מחויב המציאות, לאור הגילויים הללו, שהקהילה הבינלאומית תצטרף לארצות הברית ותטיל מחדש את הסנקציות משתקות על איראן. בכל מקרה, הקורונה לא מפחיתה כהוא זה מהנחישות שלנו לפעול נגד התוקפנות של איראן, ואני חוזר ואומר, ישראל לא תאפשר לאיראן להגיע לנשק גרעיני, ותמשיך לפעול באופן שיטתי נגד הניסיונות של איראן להתבסס צבאית מול גבולותינו.
Meanwhile, in New York City, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Kelly Craft, revealed that she had shared a draft Security Council resolution with her Russian, French, British, German, and Estonian counterparts over Washington's bid to extend a UN arms embargo against the Islamic Republic of Iran indefinitely. In a press briefing on Friday, the American representative to the world body highlighted her efforts to ascertain that everyone understands that Washington is committed to making certain that the UN Security Council does not allow the arms embargo on Iran to expire in October. Ambassador Kraft further stressed the need for Russia and China to join a global consensus on Iran's conduct, while underscoring that it is not only about the people of Iran, but also about the people in the Middle East. It is also important to mention, however, that the American bid to extend an arms embargo on Iran may face some significant hurdles. Per TV7's report last month, Russia's ambassador to the United Nations, Vasily Nebenzia, emphasized that Moscow will oppose any attempts by Washington to extend the arms embargo, which expires on the 18th of October, and reimpose UN sanctions on Tehran. Meanwhile, the ambassador of France to the United Nations, who has assumed the role of president of the World Body's Security Council for the month of June, emphasized in a press briefing that his country, alongside other European powers, will continue to work on salvaging the 2015 nuclear agreement with the Islamic Republic of Iran. Contrary to the facts on the ground, the French diplomat insisted that the nuclear agreement with Iran worked well, and in contrast to the American position, a bad deal is better than having no deal that would consequently not hinder Iran from returning to its full nuclear military program.
This agreement worked well. It worked well, and it needs to be protected. So this is why the Europeans want to preserve this framework. You cannot replace a framework that works with the absence of any framework, especially when you're dealing with nuclear proliferation, because this is our priority number one. In the absence of such a framework, you go back to the situation before 2015, where there is absolutely no limitation for Iran to go back to its full nuclear military program.
The German ambassador to the United Nations, who is set to assume the role of president of the Security Council for the month of July, also addressed a press conference which was broadcast via YouTube. When asked about the Israeli plan to assert its sovereignty over parts of the West Bank, including the Jordan Valley and sections of the biblical districts of Judea and Samaria, the German diplomat asserted that Berlin remains committed to past UN Security Council resolutions, which maintains that all changes of borders have to be agreed upon between Israel and the Palestinians.
On Israel, on plans for annexation, our position has been very clear for us. We remain committed to the UN Security Council resolutions. All changes of borders have to be agreed upon between the parties, between Israelis and Palestinians.
A growing number of global and domestic leaders are seemingly voicing increased objection to Jerusalem's planned annexation of parts of the West Bank, since it does not coincide with the years-long international consensus for a two-state solution. Nevertheless, Israel's historic claim over the disputed territories, along with American support, is seemingly enough to bring about Jerusalem's determined aspiration. In a meeting with 11 council chairpersons of Jewish settlements in Judea and Samaria, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu highlighted Jerusalem's plan to move ahead with asserting its sovereignty, but revealed that nonetheless, the Trump administration had yet to give a green light, and that there remains disagreements between Jerusalem and Washington over the size of the area that will eventually be annexed. The Israeli premier further highlighted that all that was required of Israel as part of the American peace initiative was to consent in principle to holding negotiations with the Palestinians. Furthermore, Netanyahu emphasized that while the Americans would refer to the future territories under Palestinian control as a state, Israel will view it as an autonomous entity.